The big space arena floated in the darkness between stars, and today it was full of noise and excitement. Thousands of strange beings from across the galaxy filled the huge, round building that could hold more people than most cities on Earth each. Alien creature looked different from the others. Some had 4 arms and others had no arms at all. Some were tall as trees while others were small as children, but they all came here. For one reason, today was the day of the great fighting contest. That happened once every year. Warriors from every planet and every star system would fight each other to see who was the strongest. The winner would not just get money or prizes, the winning planet would get to make important decisions for all the other worlds in the galaxy for 10 whole years. This was bigger than any war because the results would change how billions of beings lived their lives in. A small room under the arena floor, Kim Tae-ho sat on a hard metal chair and tried to stop his hands from shaking. The 19-year-old boy looked around at his simple fighting clothes and felt very small. His hands were tough and hard from working in rice fields back home on Earth, but he had never held a real weapon before. Today he would have to fight against creatures that were trained to kill since they were babies. The other fighters had amazing armor that could stop laser beams and swords, made from materials that did not exist on Earth. Tae-ho only had basic cloth padding and an old wooden stick that belonged to his grandfather. The stick was smooth from years of use, but it looked like a toy compared to the plasma cannons and energy blades that other warriors carried when Tae-ho first said he wanted to fight in the contest. The other humans laughed at him. Ambassador Park Hin-woo told him he was being stupid. Commander Yoon Da-yoon said he would die in the first few seconds. Even the scientists like Dr. Lee Soo-jin shook their heads and said it was impossible. Humans were new to space travel, and other aliens thought they were weak and useless. Earth had only been talking to other planets for 5 years before this. Most aliens saw humans as good for heavy lifting and cleaning, but not much else. They thought human bodies were too soft and human minds were too slow. The galaxy was full of creatures that could fly without machines or lift cars with their bare hands or see in complete darkness. What could humans do that was special? Through the small window in his room, Tae-ho could see the main fighting area. A huge creature with skin like rocks was beating up another alien that looked like a giant insect. The rock creature had 4 arms that moved faster than human eyes could follow. Each punch sounded like thunder and left cracks in the metal floor. The insect alien tried to fly away, but the rock creature grabbed it and threw it into the wall so hard that pieces of metal fell down. The crowd made loud noises when they saw the rock creature win. They loved watching strong fighters beat weak ones. The insect alien did not get up, and medical robots came to take it away on a flying bed. Tae-ho felt sick in his stomach, but he thought about his little sister Min-ji, who was back home working in the rice fields. Min-ji always told him that humans were special even if other people did not see it. She said that humans could do things that no other creature could do, because they never gave up even when everything looked hopeless. She believed in him when nobody else did, and that made him feel a little bit stronger. Commander Yoon Da-yoon walked into the room, and her face looked worried. She was an older woman who had been a soldier for many years and had seen many battles. She sat down next to Tae-ho and put her hand on his shoulder. She wanted to tell him to quit the fight and go home, but she could see something in his eyes that reminded her of other humans who had done impossible things. Da-yoon remembered the stories of humans who survived on planets where nothing should be able to live. She remembered how human farmers could grow food in places where even rocks would not stay together. She remembered how human children could learn to speak alien languages that took other species years to understand. Maybe there was something special about humans after all. The noise from the arena got louder as another fight started. Tae-ho could hear aliens cheering and making bets about who would win. He knew that nobody was betting on him to win. Most aliens probably did not even know that a human was going to fight today. If they did know, they would just laugh and think it was some kind of joke. Tae-ho picked up his grandfather's stick and felt the smooth wood against his palms. His grandfather had taught him how to use it when he was very young, not for fighting but for working in the fields. The old man always said that the stick was not just a tool but a part of the person using it. He said that if you understood the stick and yourself, you could do anything. The boy closed his eyes and tried to remember everything his grandfather had taught him about balance and timing and patience. His grandfather never fought in wars, but he knew how to survive when things got hard. He knew how to wait for the right moment and how to use what he had instead of wishing for what he did not have. A loud voice came through the speakers in the room, calling for the next fighters to get ready. Tejo stood up and took a deep breath. He was scared, but he was also ready. He had come too far to quit now, and too many people were counting on him. Even if he lost quickly, at least he would show the galaxy that humans were brave enough to try. The loudspeaker voice echoed through the huge arena as it called out the name Kim Tae-ho from planet Earth. The sound bounced off the walls and reached every corner where thousands of alien beings sat waiting to watch the fights. At first there was only silence, as nobody knew what a human was or why one would be fighting today. Then someone started laughing, and soon the whole arena was filled with the sound of creatures making fun of what they were. Hearing Ambassador Park Hin-woo felt his face turn red with shame as he sat in the special section for important people. The other ambassadors from different planets were pointing at him and making jokes about humans sending babies to do adult work. The alien reporters were already writing stories about how stupid humans were for thinking they could fight real warriors. The betting areas around the arena became very busy, but not in the way anyone expected. Most of the aliens who took money for bets refused to even let people bet on the human boy. They said it would be like stealing money because everyone knew he would lose in seconds. The few who did take bets made the odds so bad that even if someone bet 1 credit on Tae-ho winning, they would get back 10,000 credits. Then the speaker announced his opponent, and the whole arena became quiet with respect. General Crix of the Hegemony Forces walked out of the tunnel, and every alien in the building knew they were looking at a real killer. The general was huge even compared to other big aliens. His skin looked like green metal armor, and his yellow eyes glowed in the arena lights. He had claws on his hands that were longer than human fingers and sharper than any knife. General Crix had fought in more battles than most creatures had lived days. He had conquered 17 different star systems and killed so many enemies that nobody bothered counting anymore. His people, the Hegemony, were known across the galaxy as the best fighters, and he was the best of the best. When other alien soldiers saw him coming, they usually just gave up without fighting. The size difference between the two fighters was so big that it looked like a joke. Tae-ho barely came up to General Crix's chest, and his wooden stick looked like a toothpick next to the alien's metal claws. The crowd started laughing again when they saw them standing together. Some aliens took pictures because they thought it was funny. The referee was a floating robot that had been programmed to run fair fights, but even it seemed confused about what was happening. It kept scanning both fighters and running calculations, but could not understand why such a weak creature was in the arena with such a strong one. The robot's voice crackled with static as it tried to announce the rule. General Crix walked toward the center of the fighting area like he was taking a casual walk in a park. He was not worried or excited or angry. He looked bored, like this was just another easy job that he had to finish before he could go do something more interesting. His huge shadow covered Tae-ho completely and made the human boy look even smaller. In the VIP section, where the most important aliens sat, military leaders from different planets were already talking about what to do with humans after this embarrassing display. Some said that Earth should be banned from ever sending fighters again. Others said that humans should only be allowed to do simple jobs like cleaning or carrying things. Nobody thought the fight would last long enough to be interesting. Dr. Lee Soo-jin sat with the human group and looked through her computer files about hegemony aliens. She was hoping to find some weakness or some way that Tae-ho might have even a tiny chance of surviving. The information was not good. Hegemony warriors were 3 times faster than humans and 10 times stronger. Their claws could cut through metal like it was paper, and their skin was so tough that most weapons could not hurt them. She wanted to help Tae-ho, but there was nothing she could do except watch. The rules said that once a fight started, nobody could give advice or help in any way. All she could do was hope that somehow the boy would be smart enough to stay alive for more than a few seconds. The arena became quiet as everyone waited for the fight to begin. Aliens from hundreds of different worlds all stopped talking and focused on the two fighters. Some were excited to see violence, others felt sorry for the human boy. Most just wanted to get this joke over with so they could watch real fights between creatures that had a chance. Tae-ho stood in his spot and tried to look brave, even though his heart was beating so fast it felt like it might jump out of his chest. He could feel thousands of eyes looking at him and hear the quiet whispers of aliens making bets about how quickly he would fall down. He gripped his grandfather's stick tighter and tried to remember everything he had learned about fighting. The loud horn sounded to start the fight, and its deep note echoed through the arena like thunder. General Crix moved so fast that most of the aliens in the crowd could barely see what happened. His huge clawed hand swept through the air toward Teja, who had not even had time to lift his wooden stick. The general was not trying to kill the human boy with this first hit. He just wanted to knock him down and end this silly waste of time. The slap hit Tejo across his face with the sound of breaking wood. The force was so strong that it lifted the boy off his feet and sent him flying through the air like a piece of trash in the wind. His small body spun around twice before crashing into the arena wall with a loud bang that made even the metal barriers shake. The impact left spiderweb cracks in the super-strong material that was built to stop laser cannons. For a moment, everything was quiet. Tejo lay at the bottom of the wall like a broken toy. His eyes were closed, and blood came from the corner of his mouth. His body was so still that many aliens thought he might be dead. The wooden stick landed several feet away from him, broken into two pieces. General Crix turned away from where Tejo had fallen and raised all four of his arms in the air. The hegemony aliens in the crowd cheered and made loud, roaring sounds that hurt the ears of smaller creatures. Some of them stood up and made rude gestures toward the section where the humans were sitting. They thought the fight was over and their champion had won, as everyone expected. The floating referee robot moved toward Tejo to check if he was still alive. It scanned his body with red beams of light and got ready to announce that General Crix was the winner. The robot's speakers crackled as it prepared to end the shortest fight in tournament history. Ambassador Park put his head in his hands and felt like he wanted to disappear. He knew that this moment would be remembered across the galaxy for years. Every time aliens talked about humans, they would laugh and remember the boy who got knocked out by one slap. This would make it much harder for Earth to make friends with other planets or get good deals for trade. Commander Yoon felt anger burning in her chest like fire. She wanted to jump into the arena and fight General Crix herself, even though she knew she would lose too. She had seen many soldiers die in battle, but watching this young farm boy get hurt for trying to help his planet made her feel worse than any defeat she had ever experienced. Darlie stared at her computer screen, where all the numbers showed that Tejo's body should not be able to get up from such a powerful hit. The force of the slap was enough to break human bones, and the crash into the wall should have knocked him unconscious for hours. Yet something strange was happening to the readings her sensors were getting from the boy in the arena. General Crix was already walking toward the exit tunnel. He had other things to do today and did not want to waste more time on such an easy victory. Some of the alien spectators were getting up to leave early because they thought the entertainment was over. The next fight would surely be more interesting than watching a human child get slapped around. But then something happened that nobody expected. Tejo's fingers started to move, just a little bit at first, like he was trying to grab something. His breathing changed from shallow and weak to deep and steady. His eyes opened, and instead of looking confused or hurt, they looked clear and focused. The crowd noise started to die down as more aliens noticed that the human was moving. Some pointed and whispered to their friends. Others thought maybe he was just having muscle spasms before he died. But Tejo was not dying. He was remembering something his grandfather had told him long ago about the difference between falling down and giving up. His grandfather had said that the rice fields taught important lessons about patience and timing. He said that sometimes you had to let the storm hit you and bend like the rice plants did, but you never had to break. You could wait for the right moment and then stand up stronger than before. The old man had lived through many hard times and always found a way to survive. Tejo slowly pushed himself up from the ground. His face hurt where the general had hit him and his back ached from hitting the wall, but he could still move and he could still think. The broken pieces of his grandfather's stick lay near his feet, but he did not need them anymore. He had learned everything the stick could teach him. As he stood up straight, the arena became quiet again, but this time it was not the quiet of expecting an easy victory. It was the quiet of surprise and confusion. Aliens who had been laughing a moment ago now stared with wide eyes at the small human who should have been unconscious. but was standing up and looking ready to fight. The silence in the arena was so complete that even the air recycling system seemed loud. 50,000 beings from hundreds of different worlds sat frozen in their seats, staring at something that should have been impossible. The greatest warrior in known space lay unconscious on the floor, while a human farm boy stood over him, looking calm and ready for whatever came next. The referee robot floated over General Crick's body and scanned him with every sensor it had. The readings showed that the alien was alive but completely unconscious, with no chance of waking up for several hours. The robot's mechanical brain tried to process what it had witnessed, but its programming had no explanation for how such a weak creature could defeat such a strong one. When the robot finally announced that Taeho was the winner, its voice came out cracked and full of static, as if the artificial intelligence itself could not believe what it was saying. The words echoed through the arena, but nobody moved or cheered. Everyone was too shocked to react normally to what they had just seen in the human section. Commander Yoon started to laugh. It began as a quiet chuckle, but grew louder and louder until her laughter rang through the silent arena. Like a battle cry, she had seen impossible things before in her military career, but nothing like this. She laughed with joy and pride and relief that the boy had not only survived, but one Ambassador Park felt tears running down his face as he realized what this victory meant for humanity. No longer would other species think of humans as weak slaves or simple workers. This one fight had changed everything about how Earth would be treated in the galaxy. The boy had done something that years of diplomacy could never accomplish. Dr. Lee watched in amazement as Taeho walked over to where General Crick lay unconscious. Instead of celebrating his victory or making fun of his defeated opponent, the human boy knelt down and checked to make sure the alien was breathing normally. This simple act of kindness impressed everyone watching more than the fighting. Had the VIP section, where all the important military leaders sat, had erupted into frantic activity. Generals and admirals from different species were talking quickly into their communication devices, calling their home planets to report what they had witnessed. Some were demanding immediate reviews of all intelligence reports about human capabilities. The hegemony delegation sat in stunned silence as their medical team rushed into the arena to help their fallen champion. They could not understand how their greatest warrior had been defeated by someone who looked like he could barely lift a sword. One of their scientists was already analyzing recordings of the fight to figure out exactly what had happened across the arena. Aliens were looking at their neighbors and asking the same questions. How had the human moved so fast? How had he known exactly where to strike? How had someone so small and weak knocked out someone so big and strong? The answers they came up with scared some of them and excited others. In the betting areas, chaos had broken out as the few aliens who had bet on Taeho realized they were about to become very rich. The odds had been so bad that even tiny bets would pay out millions of credits. Bookmakers were frantically checking their computers to see how much money they were about to lose. The alien news reporters who had been making jokes about humans just minutes before were now sending urgent messages to their editors. This was the biggest story in galactic sports history and would be talked about for generations. Every major news organization in the galaxy would want interviews with the human who had done the impossible. Some of the older aliens in the crowd remembered stories their grandparents had told about ancient legends of weak creatures who could defeat strong ones through cleverness and determination. They had always thought these were just fairy tales, but now they wondered if there might be truth in the old stories. After all, military strategists were already thinking about what this meant for future wars. If one untrained human could defeat their best warriors, what would happen if humans ever decided to fight as an organized army? The thought made some species want to become friends with Earth very quickly, while others wondered if humans should be considered dangerous. Taeho helped the medical team lift General Crick onto a floating stretcher and spoke quietly to the alien doctors about what he had done to make sure they could treat their patient properly. This act of respect and honor impressed even the hegemony aliens who had been angry about their champion's defeat. As the unconscious general was carried away, Taeho bowed deeply to the crowd in all directions, showing the kind of humble politeness that his grandfather had taught him. The gesture was simple, but it carried A message that every alien understood: this human had not fought for glory or money, but because it was his duty to his people. Tejo wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand, and the simple action made the entire arena fall silent. 50,000 aliens from across the galaxy stopped talking and stared at the small human who should have been unconscious, or begging for help. Instead, they saw someone who moved with calm purpose, like he had planned everything that just happened. The crowd did not know what to think. They had watched General Crix hit opponents before, and those fighters never got up. Some had been twice as big as this human boy and much stronger, but they stayed down when the general's claws found them. Now they were seeing something that did not make sense according to everything they knew about fighting General Crixherd. The silence, and turned around expecting to see medical robots taking away another defeated enemy. Instead, he found himself looking at Tejo, who stood straight and calm with his hands empty since his wooden stick was broken. The alien general felt confused. For the first time in many years, he had hit the human hard enough to break rocks, but the boy was standing there like nothing had happened. Something had changed in Tejo's eyes. The nervous, scared look was completely gone, replaced by the steady gaze of someone who knew exactly what he was going to do. His grandfather's voice spoke in his memory, telling him that every storm eventually ended and every enemy eventually made a mistake. The old man had taught him that patience was not about waiting for permission to act, but about waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tejo started walking toward General Crix with slow, easy steps, like he was taking a walk through his family's rice fields. His empty hands swung naturally at his sides, and his breathing was so calm that it seemed like his heart was barely beating. The aliens watching could not understand how someone could be so relaxed after getting hit so hard. General Crix felt something he had not experienced in decades of fighting. He felt uncertain. The human boy was moving wrong for someone who should be hurt and scared. There was no fear in his approach, no desperation, no anger, just the quiet confidence of someone who knew something that nobody else knew. The general decided to end this strangeness with one final attack that would kill the human once and for all. The alien warrior extended his razor sharp claws and prepared to slice Tejo in half with a strike that had cut through steel doors and enemy armor. This attack had never failed to kill whatever it touched, and it would teach these upstart humans what happened when they wasted the galaxy's time with their weakness. But as General Crix committed to his killing blow, something impossible happened. Tejo was no longer where he had been standing. The human boy had moved faster than alien eyes could follow, not with speed, but with perfect timing. He had watched the general's muscles tense and seen the slight shift in weight that came before every attack. Years of working in rice fields had taught Tejo things that no military academy could teach. He knew how to read the signs that came before storms and how to move his body in harmony with forces much bigger than himself. His grandfather had shown him that real strength came not from fighting against the world, but from understanding it well enough to use its own power. The first second of the reversal saw Tejo slide under General Crix's deadly claws like water flowing around a rock. His movement was so smooth that it seemed like he had practiced this exact situation 1,000 times. The alien's strike cut through empty air, while the human positioned himself exactly where he needed to be. 82nd brought Tejo back to his feet with his hand formed into a hard point that drove upward toward the one spot on General Crix's throat that Dr. Lee's research had identified as vulnerable. It was a tiny target that most fighters would never think to aim for, but Tejo's grandfather had taught him that every creature had weak points if you knew where to look. The third second ended with a sound like breaking glass as Tejo's strike hit the nerve cluster that controlled General Crix's entire body. The impact was not about strength or power. It was about precision and knowledge, and the kind of timing that came from a lifetime of working with delicate growing things that could be destroyed by the smallest mistake. General Crix's yellow eyes went wide with shock before they rolled back in his head. The mighty conqueror of 17 star systems fell backward like a cut tree. His massive body hit the arena floor with a crash that shook dust from the ceiling. The greatest warrior in hegemony history lay unconscious at the feet of a 19-year-old farm boy from Earth. 3 months after the tournament that changed everything, Tejo found himself sitting in the most important building in the galaxy. The Galactic Council chambers on Centauri Station were huge enough to hold representatives from thousands of different worlds, and today they were all listening to a 19-year-old human who used to work in rice fields. The boy who had once been too nervous to speak in front of his village elders now addressed the most powerful beings in known space with quiet confidence. His victory had opened doors that Earth's diplomats had been trying to unlock for years. Species that had ignored human messages for decades were now eager to talk about trade deals and military partnerships. Ambassador Park sat in the Earth delegation section and felt proud as he watched Tejo speak. The young man was no longer the scared farm boy who had volunteered for an impossible fight. He had become humanity's youngest ambassador and was helping to shape the future of his entire species in ways that nobody could have imagined. The changes had started immediately after the tournament video. Recordings of the 3-second fight had spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication could carry them. Every species wanted to understand how their assumptions about human weakness had been so completely wrong. General Crix himself had asked for a meeting with Tejo just days after waking up in the medical center. The proud alien warrior had expected to feel shame at being defeated by someone so small, but instead he felt curiosity and respect. He wanted to understand the human way of fighting that had beaten techniques he had spent centuries perfecting. The meeting between the two fighters had surprised everyone. Instead of enemies, they had become friends. General Crix learned about human philosophy and farming, while Tejo learned about hegemony, military history, and culture. The alien general told his people that humans were not weak at all, but had a different kind of strength that was more dangerous than physical power. The hegemony leadership had been impressed by this friendship and by the honor Tejo had shown after his victory. Instead of demanding tribute or making threats like most victorious species did, they had offered Earth a military alliance that would protect human colonies from hostile aliens. This partnership became one of the strongest in the galaxy. Other species had taken notice of what was happening. Military academies that had never allowed non-native students began inviting human instructors to teach courses on unconventional warfare and tactical thinking. Alien generals who had laughed at human weakness now studied recordings of the fight to learn new strategies. Commander Yoon had been promoted to head the new Galactic Defense Coordination Office, where she worked with military leaders from dozens of species who now viewed human tactical thinking as revolutionary instead of primitive. Her decades of experience fighting against superior enemies had become valuable knowledge that other species wanted to learn. The scientific community had also been transformed by what they learned about humans. Dr. Lee found herself flooded with research requests from alien scientists who wanted to understand how human biology and psychology combined to create such determination. Many species had stronger bodies or faster reflexes, but none had the human ability to keep fighting. When logic said they should give up, universities across the galaxy began offering courses in human studies, trying to understand what made this species so different from everything else in known space. The simple fact that humans had shorter lifespans than most other intelligent species was now seen as an advantage because it made them value every moment and fight harder for their goals. Trade relationships that had been impossible before the tournament became routine as alien corporations realized that human workers brought unique qualities to any project. Human colonies that had struggled to sell their crops or minerals suddenly found buyers competing for their products. The tournament had revealed something that nobody expected: human weaknesses were actually sources of incredible strength. Their short lives made them passionate and determined. Their physical limitations forced them to develop better tactics and technology. Their emotional nature that other species mocked gave them the drive to achieve impossible things. As Tejo finished his speech to the Galactic Council, the representatives from hundreds of worlds stood and applauded. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder, but the young man remained humble, remembering the lessons his grandfather had taught him about staying connected to his roots no matter how far he traveled. Back on Earth in the rice fields where everything had started, his sister, Minji, continued the work that had shaped the boy who changed galactic history. She smiled when she received his messages, knowing that her brother had never forgotten that real strength came not from conquering others, but from understanding yourself well enough to do what needed to be done. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest victories came not from matching the strengths of other species, but from turning their own apparent disadvantages into weapons that nobody could defend against in 3 seconds, a farm boy had proven that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe was simply the refusal to accept defeat.